Oh no, I'm stressed for them. I know what's gonna happen, I'm stressed. There were 3 reasons why Omaha Beach was the bloodiest of all beaches on D-Day. This shot is among the best in the entire movie. It's not a beach landing scene if there's no puking. But seriously, can we even call this obstacles if they don't block a single thing? You just feel the brutality of this battle. Okay, seriously, what the hell is this? This is exactly not what happened. Hi and welcome to History Legends. In this video we'll do a step-by-step historical breakdown of the famous Omaha Beach scene in Saving Private Ryan. This video was made possible with the help of Mike Akkerman. Mike is an artist, a filmmaker, and a World War II enthusiast. And he has done extensive research on Omaha Beach. Are you ready? Turtleneck, check. Hold on. Quick word from our sponsor. Thanks to World of Warships for sponsoring this video. World of Warships is a free-to-play game and available for PC. The game is a team-based sea battle that requires different strategies and tactics. The game features over 400 historical ships that you can control in beautiful maps with unique, vivid landscapes. There are even dynamic weather changes. You can also customize your own ships the way you like or the way it performs best. There are 5 different classes to choose from. You can conquer the oceans aboard history's deadliest battleships, destroyers, aircraft carriers, or cruisers. And if the deep sea call to you, dive in with the new submarines. You can always count on enjoying fresh gameplay experiences in World of Warships' massive 12v12 arenas. World of Warships is not just a game. It is a unique digital floating museum displaying breathtaking recreations of not just the most fearsome vessels of the First and Second World Wars, but also many blueprints and designs that were never built in the real world, but that have been given life in the game's virtual dockyards. For new players during registration, just use the code FIRE. You'll get 200 doubloons, premium Battleship Tier 5 USS Texas, 20 Restless Fire Camouflage items, 1 million credits, and 7 days of premium account. A ton of stuff. Link is in the description. Alright, I'm pretty excited. You don't know how many people ask me on a daily basis when I'll do Saving Private Ryan. The day has come. Alright, I hope it starts with the naval bombardment. The aerial bombardment. No. What few people know is that the night before the attack, there was bad visibility. And barely any of the 13,000 bombs fell on the German defenses at Omaha. And if that wasn't enough, in the morning, the naval bombardment didn't fare much better. But here the weather is windy, accurate, the Czech hedgehogs, it's good. Oh, first hint. So the movie tells us specifically dark green sector, a detail which will become very important in this historical breakdown. Because remember, Omaha Beach stretched 5 kilometers and was broken into 8 sectors. One of them being dark green. Alright. Oh, look at that. Let's check how many people are there. I count 17 people. And it's not a coincidence. This landing craft is supposed to be an LCVP, aka Higgins boat. But it's in fact a Cold War LCVP Mark II. British landing craft that were even used during the Falklands War. And just like we can see in the movie, they could fit about 18 men. Now, in reality, the Rangers arrived in 2 landing crafts of 36 men each. So imagine another column of men in the middle. Okay, let's see how many there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's definitely a great shot. But like we just said, the Rangers arrived in only 2 landing crafts. So the movie not only shows the Rangers, but also the infantry company that was positioned right next to them, a company. Now to transport this reinforced infantry company, about 150 men, you needed 6 landing crafts. So that's basically what we see here. Well done. That's about the number of landing crafts that actually landed around that sector of Omaha Beach. However, we have a couple problems. The boats heading in are way too close from one another, because if they're bunched up, they can't really maneuver and avoid enemy artillery shells, and also they can easily collide against each other. Oh, that part. The shaking hands. I think this is the part that veterans can relate the most. Before battle, the anxiety, the stress, you're shaking. But then you also have to keep composure because you're the leader. Everyone is looking up to you. You have to stay calm. So that's excellent, and it just conveys so much emotion that many people can relate to. Also, Tom Hanks in the movie portrays fictional Captain Miller, which was loosely inspired by Captain Ralph E. Goranson from the 2nd Rangers. You know, Hollywood movies are always loosely inspired by actual events. But just look at his eyes. We feel that he's stressed. Look, he's looking around. He's not comfortable. Beautiful. And all these little details, I think, is what veterans recognized in their own experience. So that's definitely a good point. And this pullback shot of Captain Miller shows how the costume department really strived to make all the uniforms authentic. We see the kit that was specifically made for D-Day, such as the assault vest, the waterproof gas masks on their chest, and if you look closely, you'll see the gas detection brassard on their sleeve. Oh yeah, the puking! It's not a beach landing scene if there's no puking. The vomiting part is accurate, but, big but. Unfortunately, because of Saving Private Ryan, this entire thing has kind of become a stereotype. We just take it for granted that soldiers have to puke before a beach landing. Now, a lot of what you see in Saving Private Ryan is actually based on testimonies of Hal Baumgarten and Bob Slaughter. Both were in the 29th Infantry Division, and both describe in their books how many men aboard the landing craft had become seasick. The reason why is because they had a massive breakfast aboard the British ship, the Empire Javelin, right before the invasion. Hal did not take part in the feast, and therefore was not seasick. Bob, however, was vomiting uncontrollably, and both men state in their testimonies that some were so sick that they couldn't even stand up. Lesson, boys, don't eat too much before embarking on an amphibious assault. Oh! Notice how the formation has changed. Again, it looks great on cam, but tactically it makes no sense. They should be all lined up, otherwise they'll all get to the beach on top of each other. And there's something else we can notice. The entire horizon is empty. To me at least, it doesn't even feel like the greatest amphibious assault in history. There were 500,000 men involved. Where are they? And it's not as if Steven Spielberg didn't have the budget. Oh, I almost forgot. The man piloting the boat should be British. Remember, the movie specifically told us this is Dog Green Sector. The landing crafts meant for Dog Green Sector came from British ships. Therefore, the majority of these boats should be LCAs manned by British sailors. Might be a small detail, but as a foreigner like me, I feel like it foreshadows the American-centric depiction of D-Day and the overall Battle of Normandy that Steven Spielberg puts on screen. What is he saying? What? What the hell are they talking about? Is it me or we feel that the movie tries to show us how these guys are badass with some sort of pre-game pep talk? That they're about to kick some ass. But there's one major problem. The men of the 2nd Rangers Battalion and their buddies of the 29th Infantry Division were complete noobs. The men of the 29th Infantry Division trained from October 1942 to June 1944 specifically for D-Day. However, they've never seen combat, as opposed to their colleagues from the Big Red 1, the 1st Infantry Division, that already did a beach landing in North Africa, fought in Tunisia, and had another beach landing in Sicily. And it might be a total coincidence, but the bloodiest sectors of Omaha Beach were the places where the 29th Infantry Division landed. So I would have loved to see this mentioned somewhere. Now when we look at the faces of the soldiers, some look young, but this guy and this guy actually look old. That's not bad actually. Steven Spielberg picked older men on purpose. Because remember, 24-year-olds during World War II are not the same as 24-year-olds today. They were more mature and simply looked older. So the men of the 29th Infantry Division trained a year and a half for that specific day. Of course, we should see fear, and it's normal. But we should also see some excitement. None of them even peek outside to look at the horizon. The movie really gives us a false claustrophobic experience. And it's important because it shifts the dynamic of what actually happened. Reality is the Americans expected to have an easy landing, with the majority of German defenses obliterated. And they did not expect to walk straight into enemy gunfire. Most of the soldiers were excited and peeked out to see what was on the horizon. And many could even see some smoke coming up from the coast. And this reinforced their sense of confidence that it's true, the German defenses have been destroyed. So of course there was fear. There's always fear. But when you read American testimonies of them going towards the shore, they were actually in good spirits. The Rangers were even singing in the boats, because the 6th of June was actually one of the men's wedding anniversary. Maybe they did that because they had never seen combat before, they didn't really know how things can go wrong, and most likely they simply believed the "trust me bro" from the higher ups. Fun fact, the singing and the cheering actually stopped when one 88mm shell actually fell straight into one of the landing crafts. It caused 12 casualties even before they reached the shore. Alright. Oh no! I'm stressed for them! I know what's gonna happen. I'm stressed. Oh my god. Every time I watch this, it's just... This is the type of stuff that people refer to when they say this is the most realistic war movie scene ever made. Amazing special effects, sound effects, the directing, it's shocking, gritty. It's definitely a good depiction of the emotion related to combat in general, but not necessarily what happened on Omaha Beach. Because let's take a look at this. At first glance, I'm like, why are there already troops on the beach? Why are there dead bodies on the beach? Weren't they supposed to be the first wave? If some landing crafts arrived before and landed the troops, we should have heard the German machine guns already. I think that would have made an even more shocking scene, as you know exactly what to expect. The men saw the massacre for the landing craft right in front of them. Let's talk about these obstacles. These are hembalk or log ramps. They're facing in the wrong direction. Even Hal Baumgarten pointed that out in interviews. How these obstacles would work is that they would point away from the sea, and then mines were fastened along the log. So at high tide, when these obstacles were submerged, the hull of the boat would slide along the log and detonate each mine it came in contact with. Very sneaky, these Germans. But the log ramps and the X-shaped hedgehogs were not the only obstacles on the beach. This is a reconnaissance photograph taken in May 1944. It shows the exact layout of the obstacles on the green sector. So not only was the beach in itself much more open, but we see how the obstacles are in rows. The first line of obstacles were steel gates called Sea Element, or Belgian gates. And only the next row consisted of the log ramps. Then there was a gap followed by another row of obstacles, consisting of the iconic hedgehogs and a couple more log ramps mixed in. Yet, in the movie, they're positioned at random. It's as if the Germans were like, okay, I want one hedgehog here. Oh, Hans, put another one here, right next to it. Ja, schön, toll. Ach ja, my favorite. The Hembalk. The Bigfoot with the Tellermine. Right here. That way the Americans can use it for cover when they land. But seriously, can we even call this obstacles if they don't block a single thing? Then the other thing that's highly inaccurate is how the beach seems to be 50 to 70 meters long. Just like we saw around 6 to 7 a.m. The Americans landed at low tide and they had to cross 400 meters of flat, wet sand under enemy fire. This is what they would have faced. You can't just run across. And to me at least, it seems more frightening. You're alone, charging into the unknown. You just see a cliff. You don't even know where enemy fire is coming from. Last thing, in Saving Private Ryan, when the ramp drops, the Germans open fire and cut down the Americans like grass. Now, there were certainly instances of this, but just remember it did not happen to every boat, and not necessarily the first ones to land. There were mentions that the first units to land on the green sector was men from a company. They landed and they could see some German positions, but strangely silent. Apparently the Germans waited for all their 150 men to disembark and regroup on the beach, and then opened fire. It was a slaughter. Within 15 minutes, this company was gone. Think about it. The real tragedy is that you trained 1.5 year for this and you get killed the first second of the battle. Anyway, right after that, it's true that the landing crafts got shot at as they approached the beach. Some veterans even remember how the bullets would hit the ramp before it was even lowered. Imagine you're behind that ramp. Horrible, horrible. Alright. On the side, very good. And this is exactly what happened. As the central column got obliterated by enemy fire, the right and left sides quickly jumped over to avoid enemy bullets. Oh, I have to stop right away. Our first view of German defenses. This is exactly how they looked like on Omaha Beach. And you can't say anything against it because you were not there. Okay, seriously. What the hell is this? This type of German coastal position was called the Schnabelstand, which translates into beak position. The Germans called it like that because from the side it looked like a bird with its beak open. I don't know, Germans love nature. The problem is, because of Saving Private Ryan, everyone assumes this is how it was in reality. But only were there no Schnabelstand on Omaha Beach, and most were built in Nord-Pas-de-Calais, like this one at Stützpunkt 161. And it's also wrongly depicted as a machine gun position. It was actually a small observation post with the horizontal slit embrasure, allowing a soldier to sweep through the horizon from one side to another. Now, just like the Americans separated that beach in sectors, the Germans had constructed bases along the coast to repel an invasion. The German base protecting the western end of the beach was Stützpunkt Vierville, aka Strong Point Vierville, named after the village that was on the shore. And it was made of 4 platoon-sized nests along the escarpment, WN 71, 72, 73, and 74. WN stands for Widerstand Nest, which translates to resistance point. So landing sectors Charlie and Dog were covered by the resistance points of Stützpunkt Vierville, but also stretched eastwards towards position 70 and 68, which were part of Strong Point Saint Laurent. Alright, I hope I won't have to stop again. Okay, but honestly, the German positions here are just so obvious. You can literally spot them from miles away. We covered it before, the Germans were sneaky. The actual German defenses along Omaha were heavily camouflaged, so they could blend in within the terrain. The majority of German machine gun positions was simply a little hole inside the cliff, and they pointed sideways so it could fire an enfilade on the soldiers disembarking and avoid naval fire. But the Germans were even more sneaky. They transformed a lot of the French villas that were on the shore into hidden fortified casemates, like casemate R677 at Strong Point 72. To be fully concealed, it was built inside the remains of an old French hotel. The bunker housed an 88mm Pak 43, which would prove to be extremely deadly against Allied tanks. Alright, so now I talked quite a bit, but the soldiers are going overboard in the water. Now, this is actually inspired by actual events, but again, loosely inspired and dramatized. So it's true that some men drowned, but the fact that the bullets hit the water and killed the man inside the water, that's pure BS. Shock factor. The bullets would stop in the water. Or rather, they would lose speed, you know. Anyway, the men are all wet, are all drenched by the water. It's a massacre. I feel it's also important to know why Hal Baumgarten talked about men going overboard. Again, not all landing crafts arrived at the exact same time. For example, Hal was in B Company, the second wave. The British sailors piloting the landing crafts saw how A Company right in front got decimated. As a result, they refused to go any closer to the beach. Now, the British sailors didn't want the Americans to get slaughtered like the men in front, so they dropped the ramp much further in the water. The Americans left the landing craft and actually jumped into the water, but it was much deeper than they anticipated. Now, because of the heavy equipment, most of them sank. And sadly, some drowned. But Hal eventually made it ashore. In the end, most troops were actually dropped in ankle-deep water, which we should have seen in the movie because they were not that far away from the beach. So this part is close to actual events. The soldiers were in the water, especially when the tide was high, and slowly made their way forward. And I like that you can see a lot of extras. Now in the movie, they make it seem like the water was the most dangerous part at Omaha Beach. You see them drown, hit by bullets, but it was actually one of the safer places to be in. You can find accounts of D-Day veterans like Joseph Balkowski, where they talk about sitting in the water for hours. And basically what happened is that as the tide got closer and closer to the cliff, the American soldiers advanced with it. And only once the beach was getting shorter, then they made a run for it. But here you see they fully expose themselves. They're standing up. They should be moving in small bounds. You stand up, you go to the ground. Now, you see the tragedy here. You see men fully exposed and the machine guns are targeting that one guy. That's actually sadly what happened. There were 3 reasons why Omaha Beach was the bloodiest of all beaches on D-Day. The cliffs made it that American troops could only exit the beach through very defended German positions. The other reason is, like we see here, machine guns. Omaha Beach had one of the highest concentrations of machine guns in all Normandy. On average, there was 1 German machine gun every 88 yards. In contrast, Anglo-Canadian beaches had about 1 machine gun every 208 yards. And reason number 3 is that the tank assault failed completely. So the infantry was exposed and on its own. So this is a bit closer to actual events. The troops are more spread out. But this shot is amazing. You have a lot of extras. Well done. But I feel the soldiers are too exposed. They should, again, run, take cover. Run, take cover. Stay in the water. And this is also why Saving Private Ryan is so famous. Just look at this shot. There's so many extras. You just feel the brutality of this battle. See a couple of guys firing. Okay. Again, that's BS. This. We just said that the British sailors would avoid this happening by disembarking your troops further away from machine gun fire. Yet here again, another landing craft goes right into enemy fire and gets slaughtered. Oh, artillery! Mortars! And you see the wounded. This is another reason why people find this movie so realistic. Because you see the effect, the deadly effect of these weapons. The guy just lost his leg. And on D-Day, artillery and mortars actually caused more casualties than machine guns. It was stated that 1 German 81mm mortar would produce as many casualties as 3 machine guns. And this is what we kind of see, but the movie kind of flips this image where the mortars always fall in places where there's barely any soldiers. Why didn't it fall here or here, right in big groups of soldiers? And honestly, this shot is among the best in the entire movie because you see the soldiers hiding in the water and you see this landing craft in the back disembarking the soldiers away from the beach as it actually happened. So well done. Now, since most officers wanted to rally their men and show example of what to do, most of them got shot, killed or wounded. There's also the problem when you want to lead by example. Of course! Oh my god, you need a flamethrower that explodes. In movies, flamethrowers are always a greater danger to the ones carrying it than for the enemy. We already covered it in the Hacksaw Ridge video, but the exploding flamethrower is a World War II myth. On Omaha, a lot of flamethrowers were ferried to the beach, separate from their operators. So imagine running under enemy fire just to carry the flamethrower. Forget it. And those that did have flamethrowers quickly abandoned these heavy equipment. And I think this part too, where you're a bit disoriented, is what veterans can relate to. Now, this part where the guy's looking for his arm is actually inspired from, I think, a movie from the 1980s, World War II movie. And here I always wondered how this part was burning. How come this landing craft is burning? I mean, never explained. Okay, so the soldiers are rallied. Okay, now they're ready. Okay, move the men off the beach. This guy. Okay, this is exactly not what happened. Pure fantasy. The men that attempted to do this that way got slaughtered. Now, because the beach was so huge, the soldiers were much more spread out. Most casualties on Omaha happened when officers tried to regroup their men to mount an assault, just like here. But these regroupments were so easy for the Germans to spot from afar, and they quickly got destroyed by German machine guns and especially mortars, who simply fired in these large bodies of infantry. In the end, from what I read, those that survived were either the ones that kept running across the beach on their own or in small groups, or the majority that simply waded in the water and advanced under the cover of the rising tide. And as more reinforcements arrived, they could gather strength and actually push through German defenses. And by that time, the beach was much shorter and they made a run for it. So I think this scene is a combination of the first wave and the reinforcements of the second wave. So there's a huge time gap. But anyway, guys, I'm losing my voice. I'm exhausted. I'll definitely need a part 2 to complete the beach landing scene. Let me know in the comment section what you thought of my analysis. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to help me create more content like that, don't forget to support me on Patreon. The link is in the description.